Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about a very interesting development in the Middle East, the Mecca Mutual Defense Pact that has been signed by Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. There was a lot of Islamic symbolism about it. It was signed in Mecca. It's called the Mecca Defense Pact. It was signed on a Friday, clearly signaling that there is a Muslim identity and Islamic aspect to this defense alliance. So it raises the question, are we seeing the birth of a Muslim NATO? This is clearly a very interesting collective security arrangement, the kind that has been missing in the Middle East for a long time. There was a talk of this with the Arab League, and in the early days for the Palestinian cause, you could see that some Arab countries coordinated their security policies, but after the rise of the United States as a dominant force in the Middle East, the relationship essentially changed between all the Middle Eastern countries. So rather than engaging with each other and trying to provide security guarantees to each other, everyone was looking towards the United States. So it's like a hub and spoke kind of an arrangement where the United States became the center of all security agreements in the Middle East. And so countries began to have arrangements with the US. Sometimes it entailed making peace with Israel. Sometimes it entailed providing military bases to the United States. So you can see that countries like Egypt and Jordan, via their peace deals with Israel, then came within the orbit and protection of the United States to some extent. At least they thought so. And then the rest of the Gulf countries like Qatar and the Saudis, who have not made any public or shall we say formal alliances with Israel, continue to enjoy U.S., at least on paper, U.S. commitment to protect them and defend them, and in return they allow the United States to have bases in the region. But the war with Iran has exposed the limits of U.S. commitment to the Gulf allies. They do not feel that the United States is going to fulfill their protection. They have been literally hammered away, while if you look at the damage that Iran was able to do to many of these countries, especially countries like Kuwait and Bahrain, and to a great extent even UAE and Qatar, it was very, very clear that many of these countries are unable to protect themselves, and in many ways not entirely happy with the protection that the United States has provided them. They sort of feel that they have been sacrificed to the pursuit of Israeli interests by the United States in this particular case. And so there is a scramble for countries to search for alternatives for security guarantees. One would have thought that Russia and China would have seen this as an opportunity. This could have been an opportunity for India also to step in, but they have not really stepped in the manner in which one would have anticipated, given the basic lack of confidence in the United States that one sees in the region. Anyway, so Saudi Arabia has been looking for alternative guarantees. Last year, it signed a mutual defense agreement with Pakistan. And there was much chatter about whether Pakistan's nuclear umbrella was now extended over Saudi Arabia, even though on some occasions some Pakistanis have sort of denied that. And then with the war in Iran, we have not seen Pakistan aggressively defend Saudi Arabia, even though Pakistani Air Force and a large contingent of Pakistani troops are now stationed in Saudi Arabia. We have not seen Pakistan either retaliate against Iran or even against the Houthis for targeting the Saudis. And the Saudis have not publicly expressed any displeasure, partly because maybe the Mecca Defense Pact was being negotiated, which has been they have been hammering it out for the last 1 year. So one of the problems with these pacts are that the text of the pacts are not made public. Just some of the contents are made public. So we don't fully understand what it is. But I'm going to share with you some of the elements of the Mecca Pact, so it can give you an idea of what is really being discussed. But a few things that we must all understand is that clearly there is a lot of Islamic symbolism because of the name itself and the date on which it was done. These are probably 5 of the most powerful Muslim countries in the world. The other 2 would be Indonesia and Egypt. Last week, the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Pakistan, and Egypt met in Amman, Jordan, to discuss the security situation in the Gulf. And I'm assuming that an invitation may have been extended to Egypt to join this pact. And Egypt is not in it, even though there have been similar meetings. There was one in Islamabad a few months ago when these 4 countries came together. So we need to wait and see whether other countries will join. The announcement clearly said that more countries in the region are welcome to join this pact. So it's not just limited to these 3 countries. There are several questions that will be raised about it, but first let me just run you through what we know about the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement, and then we will speculate upon whether it is targeted towards Israel, whether it's targeted towards Iran, or is it just a signal to the United States that we do not have confidence in your security leadership anymore. So number 1, it's a collective defense agreement, which means that the countries commit to coming to each other's help. So if you attack Pakistan, then Saudi Arabia and Turkey are committing to come to its defense. If you attack Saudi Arabia, then the other 2 countries will come. The modalities are not clear. For example, whether it will be an instantaneous response or will they be stationing each other's troops. So for example, if you have Saudi and Turkish troops stationed in key areas in Pakistan, and so if India, for example, were to restart its Operation Sindoor and hit an important military target in Pakistan, it might end up also hitting Saudi and Turkish troops. If that is the kind of integrity in defense these countries are seeking, then it would really indeed be a powerful alliance. But it remains to be seen as to what happens when one of these 3 countries are attacked. So, for example, there's a lot of chatter here in Washington that Turkey is the new Iran. And in the early days of the Iran war, there was this assumption that, we'll finish off Iran in 6 weeks and then we can go after Turkey. Because, of course, the only sole purpose of America's existence these days is to defend Israel and expand its hegemony in the Middle East. So now, if Israel were to target Turkey, will that mean that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia will also join the battle? So that is the issue, but that is what is implied by the collective defense agreement. The second aspect is that it is a joint deterrence. So the idea is that that the very fact that a pact like this exists should make other countries think twice. So, for example, India has very good relations with Saudi Arabia, economic relations, financial relations. There are millions of Indians who work in Saudi Arabia. There are billions of dollars of Saudi investments in India. So now if attacking Pakistan is also like attacking Saudi Arabia, it will definitely compel Indians to think twice. So just to win a domestic election, they may not want to start a war with Saudi Arabia also. Unless there is genuinely a security necessity, India will probably think twice before it will attack Pakistan. If India is convinced that, yes, if we attack Pakistan, we will be at war with Saudi Arabia and Turkey also. So in that sense, it acts as a joint deterrence. So there's going to be a lot of military cooperation, so defense training. The Pakistanis and the Turks, they have unique capabilities. The Turks are way ahead in one of the most latest forms of warfare, that is drone warfare. They make drones which are considered some of the best in the world. So it is quite possible that there will be more investments into Turkish drone technology by Saudi Arabia, and so both Pakistan and Saudi Arabia will benefit from not only the technology but also stockpiles of drones made in Turkey. There are other capabilities that these two countries have. They are all in the defense ecosystem of the United States, and all three of them have good relations with the United States. So, for example, training pilots who fly F-16s, is an important place where they can converge. So in terms of military cooperation, there is a lot that can be done to strengthen the capabilities, domestic capabilities. I think that is one of the, from the Saudi point of view, I think while they still believe that in case there's a massive war, the Americans will protect Saudi Arabia, not just because of its oil, but for lots of other reasons in the region. But a partnership with Turkey and Pakistan could also help develop Saudi Arabia's domestic capabilities. And so the defense production thing, there'll be joint productions, there's economies of scales, so it also helps in cost. Another key element of this is the question about the nuclear umbrella. There is no declaration really about whether Pakistan is now extending its nuclear deterrence to include Saudi Arabia as well as Turkey. And I think they are going to keep that in a deliberately ambiguous. It's not an offensive weapon to a great extent. But given the chatter in the United States and in some Israeli circles about why not use tactical nuclear weapons to eliminate Iran's continuing defense, there are some people who have sounded that maybe we should use some nuclear weapons, at least on its nuclear installations which are underground. So this similar targeting of either Turkey or for that matter Saudi Arabia could, that's where Pakistani nuclear weapons deterrence. If this is serious, look, America has nuclear weapons stationed in Turkey. America still has nuclear weapons in Germany and other parts of the world where under the NATO umbrella. So will this Mecca Pact mean that Pakistan could station nuclear weapons in Saudi Arabia and Turkey? I don't know. I don't think that will happen. I don't think the United States will allow that, especially because then the nuclear weapons will be so much closer to Israel. And the US might argue that this is a form of nuclear proliferation and prohibit that. But nevertheless, these are the elements of the nuclear pact or the Mecca Pact. And it is not very clear that it is also a nuclear pact. But given the fact that one of the things that the Saudis have been so profoundly concerned about and worried about is Iran getting nuclear capabilities. So they are scrambling to have some kind of indigenous capacity to go nuclear. The nuclear deal that they had negotiated after 18 months of negotiations with the United States and signed, Donald Trump just destroyed it overnight by saying that, oh, you have to first sign Abraham Accords before this kicks in. The Saudis are not going to sign the Abraham Accords. So either Donald Trump just said that to just end the chatter among the anti-Saudi, pro-Israeli voices in the United States, and he really didn't mean it. They just called up, Jared Kushner just called up MBS and said, just ignore what my father-in-law just said about the Abraham Accords. We're going ahead because the deal is actually signed. And neither party has said that the deal is off. So there will be a domestic nuclear program in Saudi Arabia soon or whenever the United States gets to it. But I think the Saudis, this is a Saudi anxiety that it is not safe anymore, not only from Iran, but I also think that they fear Israel. So while I'm sure that all three countries have had private behind-the-scenes discussions with Americans, and they may have got some kind of a lukewarm go-ahead from Donald Trump. Otherwise, they would not have done this. So it is quite possible that they may have convinced Donald Trump by saying that this is about Iran. And in private among themselves, they may have said, okay, this is about Iran as well as Israel. So I don't know what is happening because at the moment, one can say that the United States and Israeli war on Iran, which was essentially in many ways to cement U.S.-Israeli joint hegemony in the Middle East, diminish Iran's capacity to project power in the region, make the Arab allies feel more secure and more grateful to Israel, and expand the Abraham Accords. That agenda seems to be backfiring in a big way because more and more Arab countries are seeking alternative pathways to securities. And they're clearly signaling to Washington that we have lost confidence in Washington. In fact, nearly every ally of the United States today has lost confidence in the United States. Take the case of India. Until Donald Trump's second term began, there was so much talk about the growing partnership between the U.S. and India. It was not just trade, but trade, technology, people to people, and defense partnership. India was depending and betting that its future generations of Air Force, both Tejas 1 and Tejas 2, and the fifth generation fighter they're working on, all of them were to be based on American technology, American jet engines, etc. So now that has gone down. There's not much chatter there. India does not trust the US anymore, feels completely insecure about its commitments with the US. The Quad is also become quite lukewarm. There has been no meeting of the heads of states of the Quad summit. The NATO alliance, we know what is happening. The Europeans are actively going about to reconstruct NATO as if the US is unreliable. So while they continue to buy US weapons, etc., it's going to take decades to become fully autonomous and independent of the US if they can. But nevertheless, the U.S. has lost the confidence of all its allies, even, I think, to a great extent. The visit of the Japanese Prime Minister to India, where a lot of defense-related issues were discussed, was also in many ways Japan and India looking at the Quad without the U.S. So in many ways, you can say that nearly every ally of the United States has lost confidence in the U.S. And even the Taiwanese are nervous. This talk of G2 with the U.S. and China coming to a kind of a grand bargain would leave Taiwan hanging. So I think what we are seeing in the Middle East is the emergence of, finally, because these countries trusted the United States so much, and they put all their eggs in one basket, that they did not even trust each other, they did not support each other, and they did not build a collective security arrangement. And now the fact that finally they have realized that the United States cannot be trusted to defend itself, Israeli interests are number one priority for the U.S. In fact, to some extent, you can say that the United States does not have strategic autonomy when it comes to its policies in the Middle East. It's clearly dictated by Israel. And so these countries have finally begun to understand that unless they're willing to accept complete dominance of Israel in the Middle East, they have to find another way. And I think the Mecca Defense Pact is one small step in that direction. It can become stronger, or it can fizzle out like many of the projects that these countries have launched. We see no progress on IMEC, and then the Israelis are now saying that IMEC should go not through Turkey but through Israel. Again, Israel wants to control the connectivity of this region. So the post-Hormuz arrangements will all be dictated by the U.S. and Israel. So these countries are beginning to awaken to this. Until now, they had been living in the glow of the fact that, we give money and the Americans do whatever we want. I don't think that is the case anymore. So we will see whether this will become a real force, and see the fact that if it can act as a deterrence, then it is meaningful. But if it doesn't prevent countries from bigger powers from doing whatever they want in their region, then this is meaningless. And fortunately for them, the test could be Houthis. And so if Pakistan and Turkey help Saudi Arabia meet the challenge against Houthis, which means they're not directly attacking Iran, but in many ways they could test their own commitments to this deal. If other countries join, most likely I think countries like Qatar, for example, could be another country, maybe Bahrain, but because of the Abrahamic Accords agreement of Bahrain, it may not be open. The Israelis may not allow them to join this deal, and UAE obviously will not join this. So we will see what happens going forward. The key element is, will Indonesia become party to this? Will Malaysia, or will Saudi Arabia or Egypt, or will this be just a Middle East focused collective security arrangement? All of that needs to be seen. None of the East Asian Muslim countries like Malaysia and Indonesia have pressing security challenges, and so they have more or less some understanding with the US. They also have good relations with China. So they may not be compelled to make military commitments. Because remember, once they join this, they will also have to deal with the question, what happens if there is an India-Pakistan war? And what is interesting is that Pakistan will have to be very careful with its cross-border terrorism, because now the other countries are not going to tolerate that kind of rubbish. They will tell Pakistan very clearly, you can't do stupid shit like go into Kashmir and blow up something, and then India attacks you, and then we are all forced to fight India because you did something so stupid. And I think that's the message that all these countries need to give to Pakistan, that look, you need to cut out this stupid cross-border shit that you've been doing for decades, because this will impinge not just on our security issues, but it will also impinge on our trade relations, which are very, very important with India. India is the sixth biggest economy in the world. It has $200 billion worth of trade with the Middle East alone. So India's trade with Arab countries is equal to half of Pakistan's GDP. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. And so I think it is an interesting development. I will continue to talk about it as we learn more and more about it. I might even write about it. So thank you for watching Conversations. If you have not already, subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this with your socio-political network. And I've been on some Indian channels talking about this in Hindi. So sometime in a few hours, much hours later, I might post one of those videos. So for those of you who prefer to listen to me in Hindi and Urdu, you will get my Hindi Urdu take on the Mecca Accords. But for now, I think it's a positive development for the countries of that region. It's going to be problematic for Iran, and it is in a way isolating Iran from the Middle East. And at some point, I think what they need to do is to try to bring Iran into this fold. So anyway, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with everybody else. Take care. Bye.